We're back now with the latest on the situation in Sudan. The country is in the midst of a fragile truce between two rival generals.
And this morning there are reports of sporadic gunfire and explosions in parts of the capital Khartoum as foreign countries race to evacuate their citizens. Yesterday, the UN Special Envoy on Sudan said that while the ceasefire was partially holding, it didn't look like either side was willing to talk.
The two generals continue trading accusations and issuing competing claims of control over key installations. There is yet no unequivocal sign that either is ready to seriously negotiate, suggesting that both think that securing a military victory over the other is possible.
NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel joins us now for more on this. So, Richard, where do things stand this morning? Is this truce being observed?
Well, it's a bit in the eye of the beholder. Not really, but there is no hard and fast rule for ceasefires. There is still military activity. There are still military mobilizations. They are still actively engaged in a war between these two generals who are vying for control over the country. But it is not at the same level that it was at the same level of intensity several days ago. So the evacuations are proceeding. It seems like the two sides are trying to use this opportunity to position themselves and see if there is a will to negotiate and a way out of it. But it's safe enough for people to try and get out of the country, but it is extremely chaotic because, as you just mentioned, there is still some violence. There's shortages now of food, shortages of cash. There's a lot of price gouging. So even if you can find a ride, they might not have the gas, or you might not have the ability to pay for it, or you might not have the means to pay for it in your pocket, because it's cash money right now. No credit cards, no IOUs. If you don't have the cash in your pocket, you're in a difficult position. So we are approaching what seems to be a failed state or a state of civil war, and that is always dangerous, whether you want to call it a truce or a ceasefire or pick your term.
Yeah, Richard, you touched on people getting out of Sudan. We know many countries have been working to evacuate their nationals, except for the United States, which, of course, evacuated the U.S. Embassy. Why exactly is that, though, for the United States? Is the U.S. playing any role at all?
The U.S. is playing a role, and people have wondered the same question. Many Sudanese are asking the same questions. They see planes coming into land from Greece, Italy, the U.K., where are the American planes? The Americans at this stage are playing a very large coordination role. They are trying to help tell U.S. citizens, dual national Sudanese Americans, most of them, how to find the best route, how to get to a border, how to get to a border relatively safely. They're having drone flights in the air, monitoring the roads. At this stage, it's important to note that the civilians who are trying to flee, who are primarily foreign passport holders, are not directly targeted in this attack. This is not an ideological conflict. You don't have a hardline Islamist group like ISIS that is looking after its rival and wants to kill them or behead them. This is a fight over power between two militias. So far, there are checkpoints set up by both of these groups, but those checkpoints have been allowing people to go through without much hassle and disturbance. There have been reports of looting. There have been reports of people getting caught up in the violence. Just yesterday, the State Department confirmed that a Sudanese American doctor was killed, but it seems like, according to a medical organization, was killed because he was just standing outside of his home and he was hit by stray fire, not directly targeted. So very volatile. The U.S. is playing a role, but at this stage, the U.S. is not engaged in sending planes into the country into a dangerous situation and trying to extract people.
Richard, we are also keeping an eye on what's happening to the former president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir. He and other members of his government were held in prison, but there are now conflicting reports as to where he is right now. What can you tell us?
So, as of this morning, the former dictator, Omar al-Bashir, his whereabouts were unknown. Now the government says, or the army says, that he's been moved, along with other former government officials, to a hospital. and his family has said that he's going to be there until he can prove his innocence. Sudan's this latest conflict between these two generals didn't come out of a vacuum. In 2019, there was a popular uprising. People took to the streets. The army seized the opportunity to stage a coup. And there was supposed to be a transitionary phase to democracy. That transitionary phase wasn't working. So then there was another coup by these two generals who promised that they were going to speed up the transition to democracy. That's why they claimed they were taking over power. They clearly don't want to hand over the government, hand over control to civilian rule. And now those two are fighting among themselves. And one of the worst situations, to add to the chaos, something I didn't even mention, there's been a major prison break and reports of up to 25,000 people who inmates who were in one of the prisons have been freed in this chaos. And that is why the army says it moved Omar al-Bashir, in part for public safety, to this medical facility.
Oh, Richard, a lot to keep us posted on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.